Hi, I'm a real estate broker here in Oregon, near Rogue River, which is near Medford in southern Oregon. And I'm making a series about my real estate adventures, the ones I bought personally, and then I became a real estate agent and then a broker. So I'm telling you all those stories, and I already made 4 other videos, one telling you how I got from Germany to the United States, one where I bounced around in California, and one about Oregon, and one about Flagstaff, and now I'm telling you about Montana. So we had gone to Red Lodge, Montana, and looked around and found a house we wanted to buy. We said, well, we have this amount of cash. What does that buy around here? Well, we had choice of 2. One was an old Victorian, which was an eyesore in the neighborhood, and the other one was a little bit better, but it was not as interesting as the eyesore. So we bought the eyesore, and they said, well, okay, we can renovate this and make it spiffy. It was in the high bug district of Red Lodge. Red Lodge was a mining town for coal mines, and underneath the town are a bunch of mining tunnels, but not under the district of Highbuck. That's where all the mine owners used to live and build their homes. And so that was kind of interesting. There were beautiful homes in the area, except this one was totally run down. It was an old Victorian, and we thought, well, we can make that nice, and we did. But first we had to go back to Flagstaff because we needed to sell a house. But lo and behold, it was a great house. We got an offer, cash, full price, but you have to be out in 2 weeks. I had 2 little girls and a husband, and there were 4 bedrooms. So it was a big house, and a dog, and cats, and yeah. Well, we packed everything at top speed, packed our stuff in the U-Haul, and so my husband was driving the U-Haul, I was driving our expedition, and we had a little car for my daughter. She was just barely driving, and she had her little sister in the car, and the dog and a cat. And so we thought, well, hopefully she will stay between the U-Haul and my expedition, but of course she didn't. That's teenager for you. So she hung back a day and was ahead a day as we drove from Flagstaff to Red Lodge, Montana. And sure enough, by the time we got there, they had something fell on their roof, and the skylight broke on their little car. Nevertheless, they made it. And our house didn't close yet. I don't know what they were doing, but it was not closing, so we had to camp out with all that stuff. And of course it hailed. So it was kind of interesting there for a while. And there was a mama moose with her baby, and we had to stay out of the way of that. And then finally the house closed and we could move in. Yeah, interesting times. So it was the beginning of summer, and the 2 girls didn't have to go to school, so we sent them to Oregon from whence we came originally, and they had friends there and their dad and all that. So they went over there, and my husband and I set to to renovate that big house. It was a huge house, actually. But it was a lot of fun. We ground down it was all hardwood floors, so we could polish that, and I put period tapestry on the walls, and it was a lot of work. But I had some time until my real estate license for Montana was cooking through the pipes, and my husband wanted to build a hangar up on the airport to have an FPO, fixed base operator, for airplanes. So that took a while. We ordered all the stuff for it. And so we had some time to renovate that. And we did, and it came out beautiful. And then I got my real estate license for Montana, and I hired on with a broker there. And he specialized in farm and ranch, and that was right up my alley. I absolutely love farm and ranch, and so that worked out really well. And then I had I could make my broker's license, so I could open my own company. So I did that, and then I had my own company. By that time, the hangar was built, and I put my office up in the hangar, and I named it Sky Lodge Properties Incorporated. Well, we were in Red Lodge, so this was Sky Lodge, because originally we wanted to rent out some space in the hangars for local people who wanted to fly the airplane and park it under roof. But that with another partner, but that kind of fell apart. But still, Sky Lodge Properties that stayed. And well, I put clouds in my office, and it was all about airplanes and real estate. And I had my own little airplane, my logo on the tail, and I had actually an attorney. He loved to fly, but he didn't have an airplane, so he was my pilot. And I was flying around Montana and Wyoming, and I got licensed in Wyoming as well, because that was kind of right next door, and there were more ranches and farms to sell. So I was kind of flexible there. So that was a lot of fun. And then I had a lot of clients come in, a couple in the morning and a couple in the afternoon, and I was really busy. And I didn't have much time to care about anybody else. Then one of the real estate brokers told me, "Do you know that you are the most successful real estate company in this town?" I said, "No, I have no idea. I don't have time to worry about that, but thank you very much." And I looked it up, sure enough. Well, good times. So now about that old house we bought. Well, first of all, there was no insulation in the walls. It was hollow. And so winter time came, and it had a downdraft heating system, an old heating system with gigantic pipes. So I sent my little girl into the pipes and to clean it out, and so the dirty rag came out flying out of one of the vents, and once in a while I gave her a clean rag, and she found all kinds of little toys and little trinkets that had fallen into the vents. So she had a good time, and we got the vents cleaned. But then in winter, when it gets really cold in Montana and you had to pay the gas, I guess in olden days they had a coal furnace, but now, and coal was cheap in those parts, but now we had gas, natural gas, and so it cost us $800 a month to heat that place. Also, the sewer line, the toilets didn't quite flush right, so we finally figured out that the sewer line to the middle of the street was collapsed. So we had to tear open the sidewalk and open the the street and replace the sewer line to the middle of the street, and then fix it all up again. So that was quite expensive. Little adventures like that. And then the basement ran full of water, and so the walls were kind of porous. So we put some stuff on the walls to keep the water out, and that worked quite well. I didn't really want to get water in there, even though with a sump pump it's still no fun to have a wet basement. So, but that kept the water quite successfully out. So then that old house had a tower, of course. You know, every good Victorian has to have a tower. It was on the 3rd floor, and so we put our bedroom on the 3rd floor. It was all unfinished up there, so we finished it, and then we had to walk through the attic into the tower, and then we put our bathroom, the master bath, into the tower. That was kind of fun. Yes, that was the old house. And then it had a carriage house for the garage, of course, just for one small car. So we made it a big one. So we got our big trucks in there, and we heated the floor with the driveway because, you know, it snows and ice, and it was exposed to the north side of all things. And that just gets the glacier in fall and doesn't thaw out till May. So we heated all of that. Of course, that was expensive. Oh well. And then a few Victorians down, a family moved in, but they had more problems. They had to jack up the whole house and put a new basement in. But they had gigantic San Bernardino dogs, and they came and pooped in our yard. And we couldn't convince them to keep them on the leash, so we put a nice wrought iron fence around it, so it looked the period. Anyway, and put a new sidewalk in and planted trees and all that. So that was that. And then we had our hangar up on the airport, and I think I already told you we were really busy up there with our clients. And so now we get into the real estate adventures where I actually buy and sell. So one nice afternoon, 4 young men, one was a little older, he was a father of 3 boys. They came from Maine, all adult people, and they wanted to buy a ranch. It was winter, and a new ranch had just come on the market from a ranch broker. They do nothing but ranches. They are not on our MLS. They just do their own thing. They have their own contracts. And I sold something for them, so I was familiar with that company. Said, well, this just came on the market, so I called their broker. It was a good price. I said, well, I want to show that ranch. They said, are you out of your mind? It's snowing. No way. We're not showing it. Sorry. Well, they were only there for a couple of days, so well, hop in my expedition. I know the property line. I already had researched that. So I drove up there into the middle of nowhere, more or less, and I drove the property line in the snow, and I found a snow plow, and I drove behind the snow plow until the snow plow driver got out and says, lady, you need to turn around and go home. This is not getting any better. So anyways, I got the gist of it and kind of liked it. The next day was nice and sunny, but still slushy. So I asked a friend to fly at least 2 of those gentlemen over the ranch so they could see it from the top. And they still liked it very much. So there we wrote an offer, and they bought it. Yay! Another instant was I showed a ranch for the same company, the ranch company, and It was on the river, and it was quite nice. But my client really didn't have the money at this time. He says, well, you can wait 6 months, and then I can buy it. And so in the meantime, they said, no, and we're not waiting that long. And then their listing expired. And but then my client came back. He put the cash on the table, and there was no listing. And I wrote the contract, and I closed that one. And another time, I was way out in the sticks, a beautiful little cabin, and the lady wanted to come out riding her motorcycle, and I waited for her, and no show. Well, a no show, that's pretty rare, but oh well. And she didn't call, she didn't contact me, nothing. And a year later, she calls me, said, well, I apologize for not showing up, but I had a motorcycle accident and I broke my ankle. And she came out. That house was still for sale because it was way out in the boonies. And she came and looked at it and bought it. Yeah, that also was a good deal. And then pretty much right at the beginning, when I started there on my own business, a young couple came. They had researched the area, and they had found a subdivision way out in the mountains, about an hour's drive from my office. So, well, I don't really think I want to go out there. That's a gated community. I don't even know how to get in. Well, anyway, we drove out there, and luckily somebody came out and we slipped in. And we drove this little mountainside up, and a whole bunch of little cabins in there. That was really nice. And so we just drove around in there because there was nothing officially for sale. And we drove by a little cabin, and it said house for sale by owner. So I jumped out of the car and knocked on the door and told them I have some clients. They really would like to buy a house in the subdivision. And they said, well, come on in. So we looked around, and they fell in love with the cabin, and they really liked it, and they bought it. And so now I was a hero in that little subdivision, that I came all the way out there. And I got listing after listing after listing on that little mountain. And I sold them all. It went like hotcakes. It was just great. Amazing. It was so beautiful out there. And then there was another subdivision across the river from there, and then I started to sell stuff in there. I was just I was breaking the ice for other realtors in the area, and so we helped all these people out getting in and out of that little subdivision. So good times. So the subdivision across the river was very forested, and had windy dirt roads, one-lane roads. And so I was showing a property up there, and I was going back down the mountains, and I just stopped on one turnout and looked at the beautiful view. And in the meantime, a UPS truck came nailing up that mountainside. If I wouldn't have been parked there staring at the view, he would have totally run me over. That was, oh my God. So that was just amazing, because there's no traffic, so he thought he can just, go 100 miles an hour up that mountain. My goodness, that was a very close call. Another time I was driving just across the country. There was really no road, actually, and I just I was showing a large piece of land, and I rolled over and straddled a sage hen. And I said, oh my gosh. So I got out and grabbed it, and I was just stunned. So I wrapped her in a coat and put her on the back seat with my clients. On the front seat, I had a large car. So I put the little hen wrapped in a blanket in my car, and then the rest of the day we were looking at properties all around the area, large parcels, and bouncing along. And at the end of the tour, towards the end of the day, we drove by again where we found the little sage hen, and by then it had recovered, so we could let it out where we found it, and it was happily hopping away. It recovered. And because I was so nice to that sage hen, they bought a property from me. They really were impressed with that. And another time I showed a ranch. I parked my car on the pasture where there were a bunch of horses there, and they wanted to take a closer look at the irrigation canal, and so we walked over there. And by the time we came back, all the horses were gathered around my truck. The windows had been open, and they'd shoot down the dashboard, and they'd shoot down the back, and I had a vinyl cover on the truck bed, and they'd shoot that up. So that was a $4,000 repair on my truck. Good grief. Things not to do. So I wrote a bunch of books, buying and selling a home, and if you need a realtor, no matter where you are, give me a call. I can refer you to somebody who knows your stuff. In the meantime, go read those books if you like at rogueriverrealestate.com. For the price of your email address, you can read them. And you can contact me at 541-965-9601. Visit my website and subscribe. Thank you.